All right, welcome everybody, and thank you for agreeing to be part of our Generosity Exchange 2021 nonprofit chit-chat here at Neon One. My name is Christina Fisher, and I am a client success manager on the client success team at here at Neon. Joining me today, we have my colleague Ryan Andrews from our client success team, and we have our very special nonprofit guests. We have Alex Legaros and Allie Fueling from the White Bear Center for the Arts, and we have Sally Burkia from Franciscan Outreach. So why are we here today? As you know, here at Neon, our mission is to help social good organizations change the world by creating sustainable long-term growth. And what better way to celebrate that than our Generosity Exchange annually? So on October 13th and 14th, 2021, we're bringing hundreds of nonprofit professionals to come together to exchange ideas, experiences, and knowledge. This particular session will be our nonprofit chit-chat, which is a panel discussion where we have 2 to 3 organizations who have survived and thrived over the last 2 years to come together and reflect on where they've been and discuss the future. So this year's chit-chat will be focused on the future of nonprofit sustainability. And we feel that this year in particular will be a very special conversation as we've all experienced a time frame like none before. One that's highlighted our strengths, resourcefulness, and creativity, some areas of improvement, and possibly even helped us redefine sustainability and refocus our priorities for the future. So I know I'm really going to enjoy this conversation. I'm looking forward to the thoughts and ideas you all can throw on the table today. And more than anything else, we're going to have fun. So I'll let everybody have a chance to go around and introduce themselves. You can kind of tell us who you are, give us a quick intro on yourself, what your organization's about, and then we can get started with our discussion. So I'll pass the floor to Ryan next, so you can take us in and start from there. Thanks, Ryan.
Of course. Like Christina mentioned, I'm going to go around the room first, get an idea of your organization, your role within the organization, and then, like she said, we can jump into these questions that we have for you all. So let's start with Sally.
Sure. Sally Burkia, I'm the Director of Development and External Affairs at Franciscan Outreach. I have been in fundraising for almost over 20 years now. You know, you lose track after a while. I'm also on the development fundraising side with various organizations such as the Rotary Foundation, La Casa Norte, Heartland Alliance, Oprah's Angel Network, from small to large, just always on the fundraising side. Here at Franciscan Outreach, we are a homeless services organization located on Chicago's west side. We have 3 shelters that provide immediate care, that shelter food and basic needs. And we also have a very robust case management program that truly helps individuals who are experiencing homelessness.
Awesome. Thank you, Sally. Let's see, Ellie, Alex, whichever way you want to take the floor first.
I'm Ellie Fueling, and I'm the Communications Director at White Bear Center for the Arts. And so White Bear Center for the Arts is an arts organization, and we focus primarily on arts programming, as well as gallery exhibitions and outreach in the community. And yeah, I started at WBCA just back in 2019 as the receptionist, and then moved on to development with Alex, and now I'm working in communications.
Awesome.
Yeah. And yeah, Alex Legaris, I'm the development director at White Bear Center for the Arts, and I'm kind of an all art, all the time kind of person. I come from a family of artists, so I feel right at home being at a center for the community to have those kind of experiences. And White Bear Lake is pretty unique to have the arts as part of the plan for the community, in the sense of being an economic driver and a catalyst for a lot of social connections and conversations. So it's a real place for all these different kinds of intersections to exist. And the chance to carry that on through the pandemic was life-changing, if not, life-saving at the same time. So feel very fortunate to be part of a community that appreciates what the arts can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that answer. That takes me right into my first question for you guys. The past 18 months, as we all know, have been unpredictable and just insane for everyone involved. So I kind of wanted to open the floor so you guys can round robin, talk about, what have you been doing the past 18 months, and what has been like kind of the biggest challenges that your organization and yourself have overcome? Anyone can go first.
Well, oh no, go ahead.
Oh, you can go.
Mine's going to be very brief because I know that your organization had to deal with so much more than us in a sense when it comes to funding and structure. As a homeless services organization, it's essential. So folks really were our saving grace. We had individuals, we didn't even that were not donors previously donating to us to make sure that we can keep our shelters open. Like that was the biggest thing. Like where will folks go, the people that we serve, if our shelter doesn't stay open? So we had an outpouring of love during the pandemic that we have never seen before. And then we also received COVID funding from the city and other things. So I always wondered about arts organizations like you guys, like how did you survive? Like what did you do? And like I'm just really inspired by what you're about to say. So I'm going to end it there.
What a setup. What a setup. Well, the thing about artists is that they're creative, right? And as an artist-led organization, it was pretty dynamic the way that we knew we needed to respond to how these things were going to change. But we also have people knocking on the door saying, I still need to take my art classes. I still, this still is part of my life. So we were already going to new formats for those classes. But like the same Friday we closed, we already had our first Zoom class by the end of the week. So, and we put our exhibitions online right away. And then it was just like, okay, what can we do about how to navigate this time? Ellie, did you want to say anything about that too?
Yeah, just that we did work really quickly to turn everything virtual. So yeah, we had virtual class offerings and online exhibitions, and that, I mean, that's how we stayed operating, but we also, I know Alex can talk more about this, but we did rely a lot on grants and contributed income, and yeah, help from COVID relief also.
Yeah, I remember having this joke because we have an annual fundraiser. Every nonprofit has an annual fundraiser, right? Ours was in May. And back when the COVID news started bubbling up, it was like, I passed by one of our leadership team in the hall and it's like, what are we going to do if we can't do this in person? And I said, oh, we'll just do it online. And then just like left it at that, like we'll go online. So we had to work really quickly to think about like what format will be appropriate. How do we retain the special parts of these events? And one of the things we did right away was ask people like, how can we help and how can we serve you? I'm sure everyone did. And so we started doing these things called creative care packages, which ended up going out over 6 weeks. They're bundles of like artist created activities that were free and easy to do, some for kids, some for adults, food, everything art was in there. So those helped us build that momentum to our fundraiser. We also built it around our core values as an organization. So it's a great opportunity to communicate what those were and, get people all right into that pulse of the Art Center is going to have things. We're going to have emails. They will go out often. You better check them, that kind of environment of these are these opportunities that we will be able to keep doing. And then the resiliency that provided. I mean, we had our largest fundraising total ever for that first fundraiser that was all virtual. So that really was important. And then by the time summer came around, we had the full portfolio of classes for kids. So we had more than 24 free pre-recorded classes that anyone could use. We had 2,000 art kits that were going out into the community for particularly at-risk use. There were riots in Minneapolis. There was an art center that burned down. And so we were able to go to that art center and give them art kits for their kids with, artist designed prompts and really nice pencils that actually worked and good paper and stuff like that. So it felt like that what our donors gave us was this chance to work, and
Right.
darn it, we can solve a lot of problems when we're working,
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome to hear that. It's kind of crazy to think about how different types of organizations responded differently, and that's something that we've seen a lot working here at Neon One. So it's awesome to hear. Christina, you want to take it forward?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was going to mention that's considering the times and even going out of your way to help other organizations out that maybe were a little bit more had suffered from everything going on, that just speaks volumes as to what you guys are about. So I think that's great on both sides here. So with that, I know part of the other question with some of the bigger challenges that you've overcome, I know we didn't quite touch base on those, but did you guys have any thoughts specifically on that? Anything that was a little bit more troublesome along the way or hurdles that you had to go through to get there?
I think for us, we had to pivot, and we were an overnight shelter for all of our existence. And with COVID pandemic, the city of Chicago decided that we should be a 24/7 operations type of shelter. So we had to make sure that we had adequate staff. We had to make sure that our guests, had a safe spot. So then what we needed to do is we actually had to decompress our shelters to make sure that we had enough social distancing, making sure that we were able to keep everyone safe. So we also then opened up a temporary shelter within the YMCA that helped out the folks that we serve and also other individuals from the city of Chicago. So just being able to shift from overnight to 24/7 at first was very challenging, especially for staff. Our frontline staff are truly our heroes. Like, they were there every single day. We didn't have staff that said, oh, I'm not going to go there to help out our people. Like, they were there in the midst of COVID during outbreaks that many homeless organizations face in Chicago. So just seeing what they did as staff to ensure that everyone was okay, it was like truly inspiring for us on the development side, which also helped us convey that story and that message to our donors through Neon. So we were able to keep everyone in the loop about what's happening with our shelters, in not only our shelters, but also all the shelters in Chicago. It's definitely was an incredible challenge. And I'm just so proud to say that, we've come this far. So we're at mile 20 right now. I feel we're getting there to this end of this marathon soon, hopefully.
Wow. I can't imagine what that looked like, shifting from this overnight shelter to you are taking on pretty much everyone in Chicago who, is suffering through this pandemic. You're kind of opening your wingspan and just taking all these people in. It's a really awesome hurdle to overcome.
And people couldn't leave. So that was a thing. We stopped where, like, oh, you can't go to the appointments or go doing things like, obviously you could leave the shelter if you wanted to, but we didn't want the in and out of traffic because that would jeopardize folks, like people that were staying there, people that work there, any volunteers that we had for the time. We did stop the volunteer program. So it was a complete shift from being almost a shelter to a home in a sense, and having the shift changes with work and everything. So it was just incredible how quickly staff were able to adjust and say, like, yes, we're doing this. We're going to protect everyone here and make sure we come out of this alive together.
Yeah, that's awesome. Your staff was able to jump in like that and just really step up to the plate. I think that really speaks volumes again as to what your organization's about. So that's great. Alex, Ellie, any thoughts?
Oh, well, I was going to ask you a question. In one of the things that we talk about is we offer so many services, we do so much that it's oftentimes a challenge to communicate exactly those opportunities to the people that need to hear that they're there for them. How did the changing environment affect the way that your messages were getting out? And both maybe to donors, you said you had these people that, found you and were able to provide additional support, but also then to the people that you serve too, saying that this is all the things we do now and then how it's different.
It was, I think communication was key, and just being full on honest and open from the beginning. Like, these are the reasons that we need to have all these safety protocols. These are the reasons that we are even staggering smoke breaks. Like, there'll be a 15-minute increment here, there, just to make sure that we're keeping everybody safe. It wasn't an easy transition because, folks are used to their own routines, their own schedules. And now all of a sudden there are so many rules being imposed, wearing a mask all the time, making sure that we're practicing proper hygiene. The bed placement at first, shelters in Chicago were flipping, their bed to bed, then they were flipping. So the head is here and someone's foot is here. So you're not breathing right next to each other. It's all these small details that you don't even think about until You're in the middle of an insane pandemic. So then having those stories shared with our donors, we got a ton of media exposure too, and just media saying like these are the things that shelters are doing and they have to do, just made regular folks like myself too, because I'm in development, I work remote because of the pandemic. These are the things that I would have never thought about, experienced, or even like paid attention to until like it came to our front door, and we're like, oh my gosh, like truly like homeless individuals and individuals experiencing homelessness are oftentimes forgotten and overlooked, and now it is our job and our duty to make sure that we convey that message that this is what's happening in congregate settings. And just because they're experiencing homelessness does not mean that they should not be protected from COVID or any other pandemic or any other type of ailment. So it's messaging was key. And then making sure that we stayed in alignment with our health departments, and not only with our staff, we wanted to convey those messages to our guests as well. Like, this is what CD Chicago Department of Public Health is saying. This is what Illinois Department of Public Health is saying. CDC, these are the things that we're going to do. And I think one of the greatest challenges and accomplishments that we had was making sure that frontline staff and guests of congregate shelters actually have access to the vaccine right away. So we got into one of the earlier groups. We advocated, we lobbied through a collective group called Charge in Chicago, and we just wanted to make sure that they're protected as well. And then we did a vaccine rollout, ensuring that it was equitable to all of our guests and staff. Whoever wanted it, it was there, and they were, for once, being elevated to the front of the line versus waiting to the very end. And I think that was like one of the silver linings of the pandemic. There aren't many silver linings of this pandemic, but that was
Wow.
Brian, I'll let you change gears. We got another question in line for us.
Yeah. So, I mean, we kind of touched base on this a little bit, but I'm curious as to know, Sally, you spoke to this, you saw an influx of donors. How did your donors respond to your strategy of just like being fully transparent? Alex and Ellie, you can speak to this as well. Just shifting from even, in-person events to virtual. How did your donors kind of respond to this, and what did that look like, and how does that still look like now?
Well, we're in an environment where typically half of what we need to operate comes from contributions. And immediately we felt the pinch of not being able to have our business operate normally. We dropped to we lost as much as 90% of our earned revenue through the first months of the pandemic. And while that's recovered some, it's been slow, and maybe slower than people thought. And there's been this arc from the beginning, and the understanding of donors, like we need to be proactive. We need to raise a bunch of money, and we need to have our skin in the game. Now it's like 18 months later, oh my gosh, we're still doing this, and there's a different level of engagement there. Some people have, just like we all are personally tuning in or tuning out of things. I think that it's easy to see that working in the way people are connected with an organization where maybe they haven't had that chance to be in person. So I think that's very real too. But we've been like I said before, having our highest ever fundraising targets and meeting them because we've been communicating that we have those needs. So it's nice to have that relationship where the communication is there.
Yeah, and we also we are reopening next week actually, and we have an expanded building. So we've been under construction during the pandemic. So I feel like that's another kind of impetus, like people are getting more excited now. The building is reopening and there is going to be more classroom space. So that's definitely activated some more people lately.
It's definitely the definition of surviving to thriving. Like you guys just nailed it. Like, you lost 90% of your revenue towards the beginning of the pandemic, and now you're on this like beautiful track back, and you have this awesome new place that's, new can add on to the building. That's really cool. Sally,
yeah,
do you want to? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Alex. Yep.
I just want to say one thing that surprised me the most is, maybe I'm young and I'm kind of transactional with my own personal giving and what I do in the world. but how many people were just like, you're doing it, I want you to do it. They may not have seen our video program, they may not have clicked on our link, but they just in their hearts that they know that what the arts are doing for people is important, and they're getting that message. So whew, thank goodness.
That's awesome.
You know.
Yeah.
That really is. For us, the biggest fear that I had, I started this job, by the way, September 2020. So during the second wave. So, and I went to the office once and then here I am. But I think our biggest challenge was making sure that we don't lose that connection with donors and long-term volunteers. Because we are a shelter, we've had volunteers for since forever. We started out as a soup kitchen, and now we had to tell all these people that have been such loyal supporters and volunteers, sorry, you cannot come in anymore. We are not taking in any volunteers. We are not taking in any in-kind donations. So any clothing, anything, we just had to put a pause on that. And as a fundraiser, that was such, I was having heart palpitations thinking about it, saying it, but at the end of the day, people understood. You know what? Yeah, we understand. You're protecting the community. You're protecting your shelter, your staff. It's okay. I'm going to give you money instead. I was like, wonderful. I hope that, continues. And I think people realize too, once we are post-COVID, I don't think that many of the things will change that's happened with your organization, with ours. People now have a more empathy and are truly understanding of the need for financial resources and for in-kind donations as well. But there's just this different level of understanding. Silver lining number 2.
There you go.
It just came to me.
I love it. Christina, do you want to kind of top this conversation off with the last couple questions?
Yeah, sure. So that being said, I know donors responding to your strategy is one thing, but in response, how are you guys all serving your constituents now? And has that changed? How has that changed from the way you were before? In that relationship, the back and forth there. So whoever wants to pipe in first on that, I'll let you take it.
Well, so right now we are kind of going back to a lot of in-person classes, but we still have virtual options. So we're really trying to keep that flexibility and accessibility that we found during the pandemic. Transportation can be an issue for some people. So, keeping those virtual options has been something really valuable that we've gotten from this time. And yeah, like I said, we're reopening. So we're having new gallery shows and just new spaces to explore at the Art Center. Yeah, so that's.
I'm curious to know, Alex and Ellie, were virtual, was that an option before the pandemic, or is that something that you just kind of thought of it on the whim? You're like, okay, we're doing it, and now it's something that you want to implement long term?
Yeah, it was not something we did before. I think in the back of my head, we all knew that this online world was coming down, and right. So it was definitely in our view strategically to operate that way. But one of the cool things was in our first surveys to how we could, be using this technology. So some of our members suggested that you do a hybrid class where you have some on Zoom and some pre-recorded, and and you just think little things like that, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I don't know if we would have come up with models like that without the pressure and then the feedback response too.
Yeah, that really makes sense. I think, you think arts is always hands-on most of the time. You want to be present and actually working with something and being with others. But again, there's that flip side of the coin where you can open up many doors for other people that maybe wouldn't have been able to work with you all if it wasn't virtual. So yeah, I'm sure it was quite a balance there. Yeah, Sally, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to chime in with there.
For our guests, 2 of our shelters remain 24/7. we received additional funding to keep our largest shelter that way up until December of this year. And we'll see what goes on post-December because it keeps getting extended, which is amazing. And what we've learned from that, it helps our guests gain trust in us and our case managers. It is not as easy as people think that, oh, someone is homeless here, just give them a house or give them an apartment. That's not how the process works. And many times individuals who have been experiencing homelessness, they apply for housing. However, housing is so limited and there really are no options. So having this safe haven now of being in a place, a facility that's open 24/7 gains their trust back into the system that has neglected them and forgotten them for so many years. So it's making us think of our model too, like what are some things that we can do? Like how, once we are actually, hopefully soon, we'll launch a capital campaign into a new building. Like, are we going to have some SROs? Are we going to have pod-like systems that also provides more privacy for our guests? Like when we install the partitions, you could see that our guests felt like a little bit more sense of ownership. Like, this is my space. I have walls now. I can have a little bit more privacy. So all of these things that happen, we're trying to find the positive of that and make sure that as we go on into this battle against homelessness, we have the right tools and we're using the right methods from all the lessons learned from the past 18 months to ensure that our guests have the best option and services available.
And so I think it's really cool that you're using all this excess money that you've gotten from your constituents to pour back into, your guests and stuff like that. So how have your constituents kind of responded? Are they like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing these astronomical results and I'm seeing X, Y, and Z. How are they responding to that?
We were able to recently house someone who refused housing for the last 10 years just because of everything that this person has been through. Finally got their own keys recently, has their own home. So like our guests are seeing, the work happen, but also like it's also staff equity too. So what we did was we moved everyone who was a part-time staff member into full-time status so they could actually get health insurance and get PTO too. So we wanted to not only protect our guests, but our staff deserve it too. So that also builds this incredible like sense of pride and a commitment, knowing that the place that you work for also wants to take care of you too. So it helps with all the private funding we've gotten, with all the public funding that we've received from the city and some federal money coming in. So we're making sure that it's equitable all around and making sure that we are leaving the previous models behind and just moving ahead, making sure that everyone just has a just fair place to not only sleep, but also work at.
Really awesome. And on that note, since we're coming up on time, we just got a couple minutes left here. Most important question, right? What does the future look like? Before we close this out, we'll take a minute maybe, for each of us and just, kind of explain where you guys see the future going for you and your organization. And yeah, what a way to close this out.
Well, I can take a stab at that first. And I think what this pandemic has shown is how important sustainability is in planning. And as Ellie mentioned, there's been construction going on here at the Art Center, part of a 5-year plan that took 1,000 hours and hundreds of community interviews to come up with. But it charted this vision of this is where we want to be. And then the donors that knew that, okay, there's sustainability at this point of scale. We're at this point of scale. There's going to be an investment to bridge that gap, but then we'll be at sustainability. And I think as we come out of the pandemic, that lesson, it worked here, but that is a message to keep hitting home about. If we want things to be sustainable, let's find that business, but then let's find the donors that understand that that's the vision, that's the direction. So I think that's where we're headed as we continue to just compound and, explode with the power of the arts.
It's huge. It's just like lesson learned, and then you continue that lesson onto in the future. That's really cool.
For us, it's hopefully soon embarking upon our capital campaign, taking exactly what Alex said, lessons learned, the drive for sustainability, and just parlaying that into the future and not going back to what was. You know, we're always we always believed in housing first as our motto when it comes to any guest that comes in, making sure that they are comfortable, but also being that conduit to bring about change when the guest is ready for change. You know, we've learned that you cannot force anything on anyone. You know, this pandemic showed us this. I also see in the near future Ryan getting kind of annoyed with me because as we take on this capital campaign, I will be utilizing Neon for it, and I will have 50,000 questions. Help me with this. How do I do this? So I foresee that in the near future.
I'll be here.
That's what he's
Don't
there
worry.
for. That's what he's there for.
Wow, this has been fantastic, guys. It's really cool to see two totally different types of organizations and how your experiences with this pandemic has kind of, it's the same, but it's different. You know, you learn from this crazy time, the past 18 months, and you just implement it into the future. So, Christina, did you have anything else to wrap up with?
Nope, that's about it. I want to thank you guys for your time. I know everybody's going to look forward to listening to this conversation and enjoy it. And of course, you know who to get in touch with if you need anything from Neon. We've been with you guys through this whole thing, and we plan to be for the future. So thank you guys so much once again for meeting with us and taking the time. I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys all took something away from it too.
Oh.
One last shameless plug. If you want to learn more about White Bear Center for the Arts, you can see our fabulous new Neon One website and check out all our exhibitions and classes. So.
Nice.
Love it.
Love it. We didn't ask Alex to say that. All right, awesome. Right, this is not an ad. All right, excellent. Thank you guys all so much, and we'll all be in touch very soon.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
you.
Guys have a great day.
Bye,
Thanks, guys.
everyone. Bye.
Bye, everybody.